Greetings, friends! If you are new here, my name is Sheena Peril, and I'm an author and knitwear designer from the Pacific Northwest, and I also have an interest in tarot and divination. So for today, I'm going to walk you through my tarot collection. Yes, I know if you've been here a while, I have been promising this literally since I started the channel. I have recorded it at least once, and it just it was early in my filming process and I didn't have it quite down yet, and the end video just wasn't what I was happy with, so I scrapped it. So we are trying this again now that I have a different setup, and hopefully this will work. So to start out, I'm going to walk you through, I have my decks divided into 3 different types. So I have my traditional tarot decks, I have my playing card decks that I use for cartomancy, and then I have my oracle decks. So we're going to walk through it in that order, and I will show you the traditional tarot cards first, tell you a little bit about each deck, how I use it, where I got it from, and then proceed from there. Okay, so to start off, this is, whoops, cat hair. This is probably the oldest deck in my collection, the one that I have had the longest. I got this pouch off of Amazon. It came in like a set of 4, I think, just because the box it came with kind of fell apart after a while. This is the medieval Scarpini deck. I'm sorry, Scapini deck. And I got this because it has the sort of Middle Ages style artwork on it. I had a thing when I first started reading tarot where I could only read the ugly decks, and I found this one really easy to read. It does sort of have a basis in the Rider-Waite deck, but the imagery is a little bit different. Like I said, it has that sort of Middle Ages vibe to it. I'm not going to show you the whole deck here, but I found it relatively easy to read, and as a new tarot reader, that was important to me. I don't generally read tarot for others just because I am terrible at it. I am really bad at reading tarot. I've had a fascination with divination and tarot decks since I was a kid, but I am not sensitive in any way. I am roughly as sensitive as a brick, so I don't read for others. And this deck, I'm pretty sure I bought it from myself. Actually, most of these decks I bought it for myself, but I think this just came from like a Barnes & Noble maybe. It could have come from a witchy shop, but I'm pretty sure it came from just like a regular bookstore. And I'm not great at intuitive reading, which is why I still keep the book with it. So this next deck, I did in fact, yes, get a Spirit Halloween. I got this a few years ago. If you would like to get this deck, this exact one has been discontinued, but they use the same images on their decks year after year. They just might add like gold or silver foil or something to them to change it up from one year to the next, but the images stay the same. And what I like about this deck, I looked at it online before I bought it, is all of the cards have a mythological being on them. And because I'm a mythology nut, I'm like, oh yes, this actually makes a lot of sense. So instead of reading based on like this is the Page of Cups, it's a new pathway opening in terms of your heart, maybe a new relationship, I would read this as it's a satyr. So you're being led down a path that might be a lot of fun, but it might be a bad decision in the long run. And some of them I had to look up, and some of them, I know some of these are probably culturally appropriative and maybe a little bit too generalized. For example, this is clearly supposed to be some sort of Native American shaman or Native North American. It's not very specific as far as I can tell. So I'm using a combination of overlap between different cultures, what I know from different periods in history, and trying to find the common denominators between them. So for example, you might have someone in here or a creature that shows up in both Greek and Roman mythology but is different in them, and I'll try and find, like, split the difference and find what goes in between. You'll also notice that all of my cards are upright as I'm showing them to you, and that's because I don't read inversions. I have enough trouble reading cards normally that I find it very difficult to read inversions and remember not just the normal meaning, but is this inverted card supposed to mean the exact reverse of what this card means, or does it mean the dark side of this card? Like a relationship gone really bad. So I do really like this deck. This is one that I reach for a lot when I just need a quick reading. And in fact, this is the deck that usually sits by my bed so that I can read for myself. Oh, and one thing that I will say about the Spirit deck is that this one does not come with a booklet. So you either have to read it intuitively or be more familiar with tarot if you want to use this one, because it does not include meanings for the cards. The next deck I have, I'm pretty sure this came from Etsy. It's an indie deck, but this is the Stitchery Witchery Tarot. And I don't remember where I got it from specifically, but there is the QR code if you want to look it up yourself. This one does come with a booklet. It also came with an art print of one of the cards. I mean, just look at that gorgeous silver foil. It has like a snowflake pattern to it, and you can't see it very well now, but when the deck was new and the cards were in order, it has this gorgeous snowflake pattern, like something out of Frozen. It's so pretty. But as you can imagine, this is all related to sewing and crafting. I absolutely love it, and I want one of these towers so bad. You see them a lot in antique shops around here. I had never seen one before I moved to Washington, but these things are so cool. I just really love the imagery on this. I love the color scheme. The one reason I don't use this deck very often is just because I have, like I said, I'm terrible at reading tarot, but when I just have images like this, it really throws me off and makes it hard to read, which is weird because I also do cartomancy, and for some reason I don't find it as hard on a playing card deck as I do on a tarot deck when it's just numbered images. Don't ask me why. I cannot explain the weirdness in my brain. My one complaint about this deck specifically is there was something else in the box when I bought it, and I don't remember what that something else was. But so if you look, the box is really too big for the cards. There's a bunch of extra space in here, which I don't like. Eventually I want to get another container for this, but the bags that I got off of Amazon that I used for the medieval deck, these won't fit in there. this last deck was a gift from Ash. Again, lovely book, full color. I mean, this is gorgeous. And this is another one that uses mythology, so that makes it easier for me to read in a lot of ways. I don't use this deck very often. I should use it more. But for some reason, it hasn't spoken to me and asked to be read recently. And these cards come from all over the world, the stories. So you've got some European, there's Japanese, Egyptian, Chinese, or Sengoku Chinese or Indian. I think it's originally an Indian tale that was imported to China. Polynesian. I mean, this is really a representative deck, and I do love it. This one always makes me think of the scene in Harry Potter, the first book, when they stumble upon Quirrell drinking the unicorn's blood in the Forbidden Forest. And then this one makes me think of the Discworld. So it's got gorgeous artwork. It's even got African lore in here. I mean, it's a great deck, and I really should use it more. But also, this is the box that my cards live in when they aren't on display. I got this at Joann Fabrics and thought it was just perfect. It doesn't hold my entire collection because I have way too many tarot cards, but it holds the ones that aren't on display, and that's the important thing. Okay, this time let's just do newest to oldest. So like I said, I am from the Pacific Northwest. I live in Washington, and the unofficial shoe of the Pacific Northwest, well, we have two actually. One of them is Doc Martens, and the other one is Fluvog, which if you love weird looking fun shoes, this is your brand. I don't use this one for divination very often, but basically what I do is I draw the card, and it's a combination of what the cartomancy meaning is. So like Queen of Diamonds would be nurturing your assets, a woman with influence, particularly over money matters, maybe like a boss at work. But I'll also look at the shoe and think about the person likely to wear this style of shoe. So you're looking at somebody who is fun, a little bit funky, but looking for more of a stable foundation. And the nice thing about these is they also tell you the style name on each card. So if there's something that you really, really like, you can go ahead and look it up online. This deck is a few years old, so some of these are discontinued now. Like I know this one they no longer have. But it's just a really fun deck. That doesn't belong there. I just enjoy using it and looking at some of the imagery, and that looks incredibly uncomfortable. Okay, next I have my Ouija board deck, and I just use this like a regular cartomancy deck. And when I'm reading, I do leave the jokers in there, and I read them kind of like the Hanged Man. Either the Hanged Man or the Fool, depending on the context. So there's nothing too special about these, but I do enjoy them. As you can probably tell from my backdrop, I do really love the imagery of Ouija boards. And we do have a couple in the house, but we don't actually use them. They're decorative only. I don't want to get into a debate. I think that there is a safe way to use Ouija boards. It's just that most people don't use them safely. Personally, I don't use them because, like I said, I'm about as sensitive as a brick. So I don't feel like it would do me any good to try. So this deck, I got around the same time as the Ouija board deck. If you know me, I love pink flamingos. I am a goth that loves flamingos. And this is the same thing. They're not like super special cards, but they are fun to read. And I do get very accurate readings with this deck. They're just a lot of fun. And this is one of the few regular card decks I have that can be read inverted. But like I said, I don't read inversions. I like everything to be right side up. And part of that is just me being autistic and wanting all of my cards to face the same direction. And the other part of that is just, it's easier on me to do it that way. So this deck is just gorgeous. I got these at Target a few years ago, and they're just like bicycle playing cards. And I was expecting something like the Pink Flamingo deck, but instead, what we have is gorgeous artwork on every card. And as you can see, I haven't used these in a while. I haven't gone through and rearranged everything. So gorgeous artwork. Some of the images are recycled, but they'll be like cropped and cut, and different things will be changed about them that will change the meaning slightly. And these I read by more the imagery than the actual card meaning so much. You can see they've also got some of the historic representations of unicorns. And then there's like some scientific looking images in here. There's just like beautiful fantasy artwork. There's stuff that looks like engravings. So I really love using this deck. It's a lot of fun. I love this particular image. I'm a big fan of black unicorns. And of course a narwhal. Now this last deck, it looks boring, I'm not gonna lie, but it's extremely special. And as you'll be able to tell, it's been through a lot. So my grandma died when I was 15, and shortly before she passed away, I found out from my mom that she used to read cartomancy. So this was a deck that we found in her house when we were cleaning it out after she passed away. She was Canadian, she was from Quebec, and because she was from so far away, we couldn't really take a lot with us that she had left behind. So one of the things that I took was this deck of cards. And they've got a loon on the back, which is my nickname for my mom. I tease her and tell her she's a loon. But most of these decks, I forgot to mention, this came from Target, this came from Target, the Fluvog one came from the Fluvog website, and this came from one of those like calendar and game shops at the mall. These, I don't know where they came from originally, probably like a dollar store or a drugstore or something up there. And these are just, you know, your basic standard poker deck. However, what makes them special, apart from the fact that they belong to my grandma, is for a while I went back and forth, and I would use these for playing solitaire, which helps me manage my anxiety, and I would also use them for cartomancy readings when I was first getting started. And there was one day where I was playing solitaire at my desk, and I was finishing up a game, stacking everything back up, and like the cat jumped on my desk and startled me and the cards went everywhere. And I was trying to gather them up and I couldn't find one of the cards. And it was Queen of Clubs. So could not find this card. And this was about 6 months before we moved to the Pacific Northwest. Couldn't find it, looked everywhere, crawled around under furniture. When my desk got moved out of that room to be loaded up into our moving pod, still couldn't find it. I was convinced that it was underneath the desk. And I was just so distraught because that meant that I couldn't really use this deck anymore because I couldn't use it for solitaire, and it didn't feel right to use it for cartomancy if it was missing a card. And I went through and was like laying out all the cards and sorting them by suit and trying to figure out, you know, is it really missing? Do I have all the cards? And I still couldn't find it. It was definitely gone. And I was really upset about it. So we move out here, and this particular deck ended up in a box of stuff that just came with us straight to the apartment. It didn't go into the pod. Like, it could have gone into the pod because it was missing a card, but like I said, they're really important to me. These are special cards. And I open up the package and I just start doing like what I'm doing right now because, like I said, I'm autistic, and sometimes sorting things like this is really calming for me. I just like the act of shuffling and dealing the cards, you know, holding them in my hand. And I start laying them out in order by suit, and all the cards were there. I have no idea how that queen got back in this deck, but she came back without my knowledge. And so now I have a full deck again that I can use. And this is, to this day, one of the most accurate decks that I have for any query. My grandma sends me a lot of messages with this deck, and I absolutely love it. So this one is very special. I don't use it to read for anybody else, and it just makes me incredibly happy. So that is the story of my magical but boring Canadian Loon deck. So those are all of my tarot style decks. Let's get into the Oracle decks because this is honestly the biggest category. So these are just stacked up smallest to largest because that's the easiest way to move them. So I'll just show them to you like this. So this deck right here, is not available anymore. This was actually in one of the Happy Planner Be Happy boxes that they did a couple of years ago. It was like celestial themed. And what they are, these are affirmation cards. And what I do when I'm journaling is I'll write my entry and then I will pull one of these affirmation cards and write that at the bottom of my entry. And there's not too many of them. I think there's like 20 or 25, but they're really nice. I like the aesthetic of them, and they're a nice little encouraging message when I'm feeling down. And in conjunction with those, I also have this deck. And this is not how it is meant to be used, but I got this off of Amazon. And what these are different sigils and symbols that are used in magic and mythology and different traditions. And I will draw one of these as well as like a manifestation tool. So I don't do readings with these. Like I said, it's just drawing one card for manifestation and then putting whatever it says on the card into my journal. And it does come with little instructions right there on the lid. And of course, each card has its meaning printed on it, so that's useful. Now, one of the subgenres of tarot and oracle cards that I collect is anything crafty. So like the Stitchery Witchery deck that I showed you. And then I also have this one, which is the Unraveled Oracle. This came off of Etsy. And it has beautiful photography. And this one is just like a very positive, uplifting deck. I really love the movement card. It's very Wheel of Fortune or Chariot energy. And I'm a Cancer, so the card for my star sign is the Chariot. She also includes a little booklet with just like a line or two about each card. It's not super in-depth, but it's enough to get you started, and these are definitely meant to be read intuitively. So if you have any knowledge of knitting, crochet, or spinning, then the imagery on the cards is probably going to have more meaning to you and make it a little bit easier to understand. And then they just came in this little canvas pouch. And I will try to link to the indie decks, as many as I can, but like I said, I don't think all of them are available now. I don't know if that one still is or not. This one is the Knitter's Oracle, and I got this one on pre-order. It was like a Kickstarter type thing. It does come with a booklet, but it's kind of jammed in here. Yeah. I wasn't part of the Kickstarter. I missed it, but I ordered the pre-order that came up right after the Kickstarter. And these have since gone into a second edition that have, I think, silver foil on them on her website. And this is from Wild Hunt Designs, which I need to order something from her website soon because I absolutely love it. She has some really great sarcastic like knitting, progressive, liberal stuff on there that I adore. So we have the Hank, the Ram. They've got these beautiful, simple illustrations on them. I really love the limited color palette. And again, this is one of those where if you know anything about knitting or crochet, then the imagery on the card is going to mean more to you intuitively than what you can pull out of the book. Because the book just has a couple sentences for each of them. love this one. I think that card is hilarious. So I love this deck. I haven't been using this one lately. I usually pick like 3 decks, and those will be the ones that I use the most or have next to my bed, and then I rotate them out, you know, every couple of months. So right now the 3 that I'm using are the Unraveled Oracle, the Flamingo deck, and then where is it? The Halloween Oracle and the Clow are the 2 others that I'm using right now, which we'll get to in a second. And of course my grandma's deck, that one is a standby. That one never gets swapped out. But I usually pick the deck based on the question that I'm asking, and I just kind of go by vibes. So this deck is adorable. It has a super chunky book that goes with it. Look at that. And I got this from my formerly local New Age shop, Pearls of Wisdom, which is in Clintonville, Ohio, northern Columbus. One of the reasons why that book is so chunky is because it has a whole bunch of languages on the back. So if you are not a native English speaker, you have options. And eventually I want to find a deck that is dogs like this. I thought I had found one, and I was so disappointed. I ended up unhauling it and giving it to a friend because it was a tarot deck that was dog themed, but they only had like half of the major arcana and a random selection of minor arcana. It was a very strange deck, and it really annoyed me. But I think that these are just like the cutest pictures. I mean, look at that. It's so adorable. And it tells you what breed each cat is supposed to be. I mean, look at him. He's so proud. His first hunt. And for obvious reasons, I use this deck mostly if I'm concerned about our cats. And I usually invoke Best or Bastet, however you prefer to refer to her, the Egyptian cat goddess, whenever I use this deck. When I was a kid, I wanted a cat exactly like that, a white Persian. I love this card. Okay, so my next deck is one that you've probably seen before. These are the Goddess Guidance Oracle. And I love the little quote at the bottom of each card. I find this deck really helpful when I'm feeling lost. It's beautiful artwork. It has another just really nice chunky book. And it pulls from a lot of different cultures. I think Mary is even in here, and possibly another female saint. Yeah, Mary Magdalene and then Mother Mary are both in here. So I really like these cards. That's a very common deck. I've seen a lot of people on YouTube using them. I know The Meaningful Stitch usually pulls a card from this deck at the start of each podcast. And then the next deck might also be familiar to you. This is the Vintage Wisdom Oracle, and I got this one, and I think also the Goddess Guidance Oracle off of Amazon. I might have gotten the Goddess cards from a local shop, I don't remember. But I really love the imagery on this sort of like Art Nouveau type of look to it. I love the 1920s sort of Edwardian imagery, how it looks a little bit scrapbooky. And this is another deck that I reach for quite a lot. I tend to refer to the Goddess Guidance deck when I have a decision to make. And then I tend to look at this one when I just kind of need like comfort and a little bit of direction. These cards are so pretty. I saw these online or I think somebody was doing like a flip through or they'd done a reading with them. And I was just like, oh, I definitely need to get that deck. And the chunkiest book of them all, this book is huge. It has a ton of great information. There's a couple pages for each card. It's really great. But this is the Seasons of the Witch deck. And this one and the last two decks that I have to show you all came from Amazon. But I love this sort of Edward Gorey vibes. It's giving Addams Family. I mean, this deck is everything. It's gorgeous. I don't read from this deck as much as I would like to, which is one of the reasons why I had it pulled out. And I still just wasn't reaching for it. But I do use it as decoration a lot. You'll see it in a lot of my thumbnail images for the YouTube channel. I love bats. Sky puppies. This one makes me think of the girl with the green ribbon. But it just has really great energy. It's spooky. I adore it. I don't know what else I can say about this. I would like to read from it more. It just hasn't been resonating with any of my queries lately. I mean, that red foil, that is gorgeous. So next we have the Halloween Oracle. And one thing I don't like about how this one was packaged is you have this huge book. It's not super thick, but I mean, look at the dimensions on that. And then we have these huge cards that are really hard to hold, but they're still just like significantly too small for the box. So that's me being nitpicky. But other than that, I love this deck. These are so pretty. And the Skull of Stars, I swear to God, it shows up in every reading that I do with this deck. And there's a couple different skull cards, but specifically it's that Skull of Stars. I will say that it took me a while to really break these cards in, because for some reason they were sticking together really bad and they would come out in chunks and not shuffle correctly. So what I ended up doing is just like one of these sorting every other card into a different pile and then shuffling them that way. And that finally broke the tension between the different cards and made it so that they would shuffle properly and I could lay them out properly. This last deck isn't technically an Oracle deck, but it's an Oracle deck. So if you're an anime fan, you recognize the Clow. This is from the original Cardcaptor Sakura anime. There are other decks that come after this in the series, but I wanted the first one. It has this gorgeous interior, very detailed, magnetic closure. And I don't know if I can get these in frame because, as you can tell, they are very tall. They're not very wide, but they're very tall, and that can make them really hard to shuffle. And I generally don't use these as readings, but I do use them as signifiers if I'm doing a pick a card, which I did for a while over on my blog. I stopped doing that because those posts took forever to put together. I did not count on how much longer it would take me to write up a pick a card reading compared to how it is spoken out loud to a camera. And one of the reasons I haven't used these in readings, I've tried using them intuitively, and there are some cards in here that I either don't remember from the show or I don't think they made it into the original series. They might have showed up later, like in a movie or something, but I just don't remember them. And again, this is another one that I need to straighten out. But what I want to do eventually is sit down and rewatch the entire series, pull out each card in the order that it appears in the show, and then write something about how it's portrayed in the show in terms of its meaning, like what lessons are learned, what's the conflict for the episode, how is each card captured, what's its weakness, and then kind of build my own book for it that way. There's also a clear card deck, which at some point I would like to get, but it's still just the original Cardcaptor Sakura is what's in my heart. So I really love these. I think they're beautiful. They're a lot of fun. And they can be read intuitively. Like I said, you don't have to be as neurotic as I am about going back and pulling out the meanings. These don't come with any kind of guidebook. That is just my preference. I love the Dash card. He's so cute. Okay, so that's it. That is my tarot and oracle card tour. This was a much longer video than I wanted it to be, but we had a lot to get to. So if you enjoyed this, leave a comment down below so that I know to make more stuff like this. If you're interested in knitting and crochet with a side of the spooky and mysterious, then go ahead and subscribe and you'll be able to watch my regular podcast, well, semi-regular podcast, in which I talk about knitting and crochet, spooky books, video games, and we have a ghost story. So until next time, ciao, stay safe, stay healthy, and I hope you have something soft and fluffy to cuddle with.